It's preparing to stream. We'll have to post the link once it populates.
Yeah. Well, let me know when that happens, because I feel like we need to make a statement. I'm going to say something. I'm not letting that go unnoticed. And I don't care quite frankly right now what anyone's, and I'm telling you that came from someone in our community, and I'm pretty angry about it right now, more than I am about somebody hacking our meeting. It's something we have to deal with, and it reared its ugly head, and it's here, and it's reality, because I see Confederate flags in the Waterville School District, so might as well just say something about it now, because it's very real.
Good.
And Roberta, is that you on the iPhone? Just. Okay.
Um,
So it looks like I can copy the streaming link for YouTube.
these creepers. Oh, come on. All right. All right, Chuck, I just sent you. You can, do you have your laptop here?
Are we just missing Susie and Steve Turner right now?
Steve is coming in.
I'll call Susie.
Okay.
I know. I'm on the phone with Susie. She's gonna try now. She said she tried and couldn't get in, so she's trying again. Yep, you're coming on now. Okay, bye.
Steve, we're live on YouTube.
Okay, we are up. The feed's working.
Yes, it is.
All right, so we have not begun an official board meeting, but I feel the need to make a statement on what happened. We will resume our budgetary discussion from our business official. I think probably, Tracy, you should just start over when it's your time to start here in a second for your portion.
Yep.
I feel it's appropriate to let the public know that clearly our Zoom meeting was hacked. We don't need to get into the technical realities of that, but unfortunately, the words used were the most offensive possible, which we will not tolerate in any way, shape, or form as a school district. I am very appalled and disappointed that that happened, but I think we need to recognize in every community in the country, we have major opportunities with tolerance and acceptance, and that the idea that we've moved past racism, that we've moved into a world where that's not an issue, that's just incorrect. And that was a very obvious display of the work we have to do as a community and as a school to ensure that that type of language is never uttered. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Tracy so we can get back to the serious business of discussing our budget that this board worked extremely hard on to do the best that we absolutely can for our students. Thank you, Tracy. That was a very obvious display of the work we have to do as a community and as a school to ensure that that type of language is never uttered. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Tracy so we can get back to the serious business of discussing our budget that this board worked extremely hard on to do the best that we absolutely can for our students. Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, I apologize, I was muted. Again, we will start back from the beginning and talk about the budgeting and finances for the 2021 budget and how that impacts Waterville Central School District. Our budget goals as we begin any budget season and throughout the entire year, we're always looking at student opportunity and choice, and we need to balance that with the limited resources that we have available and certainly our tax cap. This year, like no other year, we had budgeting challenges, and the tax cap is familiar to us. It has not gone away. It has been in place since 2011. As many of you, I'm sure, have heard or are familiar with, the tax cap or tax levy limit, which is the legal term, puts constraints on the amount of money that a school district can levy and support their budget with. For Waterville, the tax cap is 2.34%. Waterville stayed within that cap while building this budget. If a school district, any school district chooses to go over that, they would need to obtain 60% majority vote on their budget. And again, Waterville did not choose to go over the tax cap. We held to the 2.34% levy increase, and that certainly is a challenge as we build budgets. New to us this year, but not new to us in the scheme of education, is a state aid freeze. As Mr. Chafee had said early on in the presentation, when we received our state aid numbers earlier this year, we did have an increase. As we moved through this series of months leading up to today, there was a freeze on state aid and we had a reduction of $211,000. So we did need to adjust our budget from the point that we were at in February and March through where we are now. There is a potential look back. Again, this is new. With COVID and all of the factors surrounding the global pandemic, the governor has the ability to look back a period, and if the state is not hitting specific financial benchmarks, the governor has the ability to take back monies from school districts and from other governmental agencies. The first look back period ended April 30th. To date, we have not received notification that we would have a take back in the 1920 school year, but there is two other look backs. One that could affect us again in 1920 because June will be part of that look back period. And then the final look back period will be from July to December. And there is a possibility, and while we were building this budget and looking into not only next year, but the following year, we needed to be thinking about what that would mean for Waterville if there was a potential state aid take back after we started 2021. And then, of course, the global pandemic, which we've all been dealing with and all have felt personally in one way or another. These challenges make it very difficult, again, to balance not only our student needs and give our students choices, but also the needs of our community and our taxpayers. So with that, we will get into looking at the school district budget. Each year, I like to take a step back and talk about what a budget is so that we are all on the same page as we look at this. School district budget really is no different than your household budget or my household budget. Our expenses increase. Our revenues may not necessarily increase at the same level, and we have to balance that by either reducing expenditures or finding another revenue stream. For a school district, we put together a financial plan for 1 year. That's not to say that we don't look out in 2 or 3 or 5 years, but the budget that we ask voters to vote on is for 1 year. There are estimates and assumptions built into that budget. There is a lot of factors, including historical data and trends and forecasting that is utilized when we put together the school district budget. Our budget for 2020-2021 comes in at $18,952,886. That is a 0.87% increase over the current 1920 budget, or about $163,405. An increase less than 1%. When, if I was just to look at that as the number, I would know that a budget built like that is going to be a difficult budget for next year. Things are going to be tight, and that was part of the process in order to keep as many academic pieces in place. The tax levy increase comes in at 2.34%. That is our legal allowable limit that we can go to. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the revenue section of the budget. As we move forward, I'm going to talk in a 3-part component. Under education law, I am required to present the budget in the 3 components listed below: administrative, instructional, and capital. In the administrative component of the budget, this is where all expenditures are housed for the Board of Education, superintendent, business operations, legal, curriculum development, supervision of schools, research and development, advertising, printing, computer admin, and all applicable employee benefits. For the 2021 budget, this section of administrative component comes in at $1,985,572. The instructional or program component of the budget comprises of all of our program expenditures, including salaries and benefits of all teachers and administrators and supervisors that spend the majority of their time performing teaching duties. And in this section of the budget, all of our transportation expenditures are also recorded. 2021, the cost of this section of the budget is $13,206,379. Capital component of the budget is where we record all of our capital, debt service, leases, tax certs, court judgments, and all facility costs. Again, including all salary and benefits associated with those sections. This portion of the budget comes in at $3,760,935. When we look comparatively from last year to this year, we can see in the administrative section of the budget, we have a small reduction of about $26,000. And the instructional component of the budget, we're up just over $99,000. And in the capital section of the budget, we're up just under $90,000. totaling the increase of $163,405 as we move into 2021's proposed budget over the 1920 budget. Again, 0.87% increase in expenditures. As we move into the revenue piece of this, again, I will say the expenditure portion of our budget is not the problematic piece of the budget. The problematic piece of the budget is revenues. When we look at the expenses and we see where the dollars go, again, in a pie chart, some people like to see a visual. 70% of our expenditures are in the instructional portion of the budget, which certainly they should be. That is what our business is. 20% is in the capital or infrastructure portion of our budget, and 10% is in the administrative piece of the budget. We'll move into revenue and talk about some of the areas that are problematic. And revenue over the last several years certainly has been declining and has been difficult at best to maintain. You can see in the state aid line, the first line on here, comparatively from last year to the proposed 2021 budget, we have about a reduction of $55,000 or 0.4% reduction. As we had stated early on, we have a freeze in our number one revenue stream, which is general aid. So foundation aid, which is our general aid, has been frozen. We had a reduction of just over $200,000 there. Other pieces of our state aid are expense-driven aids, which make up the other portion of our state aid. In total, however, we are down just over $55,000. Our next largest piece of our revenue stream is the tax levy. As I had pointed out earlier, it is up 2.34%. That is the allowable limit before we would go to a majority vote. And that generates $124,290 into our revenue stream. We do utilize fund balance to balance the budget. Last year we used $431 or budgeted $431,000. And as we are budgeting the 2021, we are budgeting $450,000 to balance the budget. We have some other small revenue streams that bring in about $677,000 to our total revenue, making it $18,952,886. Again, equal to our expense because we do need to balance and build a balanced budget. When we talk about revenue and we look at it in a visual, 65.3% of our revenue comes from state aid. Over the last 10 years, this has certainly declined. Waterville historically has sat at about 70% state aid, and we are now sitting at about 65% state aid in our revenue stream. 28.6% is funding our budget through our tax levy, and 2.3% fund balance, and then 3.8% of our revenue comes from other small revenue streams, again, to balance our budget. Just to take a minute and do a recap and a little walkthrough of history with state funding. One, it's unpredictable. Two, we are underfunded. As I had said, we're at about 66% of our state aid comes from, our revenue comes from state aid, where it used to be 70%. And for those that may not have been around or paid attention, or it hasn't been part of your daily business, school districts and what happens in school districts and how we're funded. Between 2009 and 2016, Waterville lost a total of $15 million. That is aid lost, and it is not to return to us. That was 10, 11 years of freezes. We had a gap reduction that was put into place several years ago. And then there was a restoration. But through that time period, we are down $15 million in state aid, and that has not come back to us. So that is significant as we continue to build budgets going forward. In 2011, a new law came into place, as I talked about, the tax levy limit, or what is historically known out in the world as the tax cap, known as the 2% tax cap. It is not 2%. It's based on a formula. Waterville's cap is 2.34%. In 2014, 16, and 19, there were significant changes to STAR that all affects our taxpayers, that affects our levy, it affects the tax rate. And here we are again in 2020-21, and we're seeing our first state aid freeze again. So again, for Waterville, a loss in year one of an aid freeze of $211,844. I emphasize this because when we look at the history of what has happened in New York State, at a time when something similar happened, certainly not a pandemic, but when economic downturns happened back in 9-10, they are long-lasting impacts for a school district. So, you know, I think that the Board of Education has done a very diligent job putting together a budget that I'm presenting to you in the dollars that contain and maintain the academic program that has been presented here tonight. Again, I want to continue to reemphasize this tax cap. 2011 came into play. Waterville once again stays within the tax cap, 2.34%. This is a levy increase. Many times the question is, so my taxes are not going to go up more than 2.34%. The levy and the tax rate are two different things. When we talk about the levy, that is a dollar amount needed to support the school district budget. You can see the numbers there. Last year's levy, $5,312,878, and this year's levy, $5,437,168, that is being proposed in the 2021 budget. That is not the tax rate. The tax rate we cannot calculate until late August. There are many pieces, and if you look to the left, the right of this chart, there are many other pieces that come into play. So when somebody says to me, can you tell me how much my taxes will go up? My taxes will not go up more than 2.34%. That is inaccurate, and I cannot answer that question until we get to August. And we have the assessment information from the county and the equalization rates from the state. I will summarize and I will talk about the propositions, and we will talk a little bit about the absentee ballot voting that will happen this year as part of the executive order that was put forth a few weeks ago. So again, to summarize, what is being asked of the voters this year is to approve the 2021 expenditure budget and the amount of $18,952,886. Again, a 0.87% increase. There is a proposition on your ballot to authorize the purchase of school buses not to exceed the cost of $351,000. Waterville levies and collects taxes for the two libraries that are within our school district. The Waterville Public Library is requesting the authorization for a levy of $215,191. There will be a proposition on your ballot for that. And also the C.W. Clark Memorial Library, authorizing the school to levy and collect taxes in the amount of $65,644. I will pause here for a second. There was a typo on the ballots that went out. This has been plastered through all social media outlets, from the school district to the library. It will all. It has also, I believe, been in the Waterville Times. I know there was an editorial that the library had written to place in the Waterville Times. There was a typo. The number that is on the ballot states $99,932. That is their total revenue. So again, C.W. Clark Memorial Library, their levy that they are looking for is $65,644. We have several board members that are up in Waterville. We have 3 seats open, and on the ballot is Tim Jones, Stephen Stanton, and Steve Turner. On the Waterville Public Library, there are 2 seats open, and Mark Barnes and Florence Walter are on the ballot for those seats. And now if we could just take a minute and talk about the budget vote by absentee ballot, what this means, what you received in the mail, and what this process is going to look like as we go through the canvass and counting of ballots. All ballots are due in the district office by June 9th at 5 p.m. All ballots have been mailed in the Waterville School District. Waterville School District is not a poll, we're not a personal registration district. We do not maintain a list of registered voters in this school district, whereas many small school districts do not. We are a poll registration. You come into the site, you've lived in the district for 30 days, you have a valid address in the district, you are 18 years or older, you are then allowed to vote on the school budget. When we got the information from New York State 2 to 3 weeks ago that we were going to do an absentee ballot, we needed to identify our eligible voters. The process that we used to do that was to obtain the voter registration lists from the 2 counties that our municipalities are housed in. Certainly those municipalities cross over multiple school districts and are not just Waterville district members. Our district clerk went through and scrubbed that data utilizing boundaries really from our transportation software, using our school district boundaries, and we sent out over 3,300 ballots. If you did not receive a ballot and you are in the school district, please contact the district clerk, Kim Fansett. The email address is listed here, or contact the district office, 841-3915. We will get a ballot out to you. Ballots are coming in. We have a very large locked, secure lock box that they are being placed in. We will be taking ballots right up until 5 o'clock. On the day of the budget vote, there will be a lock box placed outside the door at the junior, senior high school. If you were unable to put your ballot in the mail, you will have the opportunity to walk it up and put it in the ballot box. That ballot box will be removed at 5 p.m. So please, I urge you, if you are not able to get it in the mail, walk it into the ballot box. If you have not gotten a ballot and you are a Waterville District member, please contact us so we can get one to you. Thank you. And I will turn over any last comments to Mr. Chafee.
And I do not have any questions at this point. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to send them along to my email address. I do have one, I guess, concern that was relayed to me, and I just want to clarify. When your absentee ballot comes into the office and is, again, would be counted, if you will, it is removed from the envelope. That, again, please make sure it's signed and make sure that your information is on the other side and all that information. But when the envelope is open, the ballot is removed, the envelope is put aside, and the ballot is put in the box or bin with all the other ballots. So there is no way that people counting the ballots know who you voted for. So there is complete confidentiality in your ballot. So again, please don't be worried that if your name is on the envelope, that they're going to know how you voted. The envelope and the ballot are removed. They're separated from each other. And there is no way that the election inspectors and the counters are going to know who voted how. So again, please know that the confidentiality is maintained. And again, if you haven't submitted your ballot, please get that in. And again, we thank you for your time today. And at this point, I will turn it back to Mr. Stanton, and who will take us into our regular Board of Education.
All right, well, we will call this meeting to order at 6:07 PM. Can we rise for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, get my agenda here. We'll start with 3-1, approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Motion to
So
approve.
moved.
We'll have Mark and then Roberta, is that a second?
Yes. Oh, it was a
Okay.
first.
He slightly beat you to it.
Just a little.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. 3-2, approval of the minute. It's from 12/2020. Can you hear me?
Freezing up there.
I froze up there. Did we get a motion?
So move. Second.
Mr. Stanton, we did get a
Any-
first and a second.
Can you hear me? All right, hold on. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. 3-3, approval of the minutes from 5/26/2020.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Russ and Roberta. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, moving into business operations, 4-1, approval of the general fund warrant.
So move.
Second.
And there were no questions on any of the warrant business operations.
Thank you, Chair. Any other discussion? Steve? Steve?
You want to go ahead, Mark, and then Steve can pick back up when he comes in. He must
All
have-
those in favor on 4-1?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is, any nays? Motion is passed. 4-2, approval of special aid fund warrant in the amount of $43,975.
Move it. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. 4-3, approval of the school lunch fund warrant in the amount of $5,600.41.
So move.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Was there a question? Motion is passed. 4-4, approval of the capital fund warrant, $47,426.15.
So move.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. 4-5, approval of the CSE, CPSE recommendations.
So move is listed.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. That moves us on to presentations. Chuck?
Okay, I think Steve is back, so feel free to jump in here if you have anything else. I did want to talk about the voting, and actually I will share that. And again, and Tracy, feel free to jump in here in case we have some folks that have joined us for the meeting that weren't part of the budget presentation. But I just do want to just kind of reassure a few things. Number one, that your absentee ballot is in strictest confidence. When the ballot comes in, the envelope that you sign, and please make sure it is signed, and please make sure that your name and address are on the other side. That allows us to validate that you are actually a qualified voter in the Waterville Central School District. And when the night of the election, June 9th, when the ballot is open, the envelope and the ballot are separated from each other. So there is no way, again, the ballot is folded. There is no way that we know who voted for what. So again, please understand your ballot will be in strict confidence. Please, as I kind of alluded to, make sure that you're putting an X or a check mark in the appropriate spots on the ballot. But biggest thing is make sure when the ballot, you put it in the envelope, make sure that you're signing the envelope and that you're putting the information as far as your name and address on the other side. That allows us, again, to verify. Otherwise, the ballot is a void ballot and we're not allowed to count it. So that's just that. Trace, anything you want to else? Again, June 9th, it has to be in by 5 p.m. That is, again, that's state regulation. Again, please get your ballot in.
Yeah, and just so that the board is aware, Chuck, myself, and Kim attended a 2-hour webinar this morning that was put on by New York State ASBO with several legal firms as the guidance really for school districts and this absentee ballot vote and what that means. And I know there's been a lot of question about an interior envelope and concern on that signature piece of it. And pursuant to education law, that oath envelope is the envelope that needs to have the signature and is the envelope that the ballot is to go in, which again was confirmed today. So as Chuck said, we are going to do a dry run on this. The process that we have set up will be, those envelopes will be opened. This is actually what is written into education law. You are to take them out unfolded and they are to be placed into a box unfolded. So that is pursuant to education law. We will follow that. The district clerk will then gather the ballots and will move them to the inspectors to start the count. We do intend to run it live stream. There will not be audio to the counting. Our plan is to run it live stream. So provided that our technology works, we will be running the count live stream. Thank you.
All right, next up is, again, an update on graduation. And it will be similar to one of the options that Mr. Rauch had discussed. And again, a kind of little background here. On Thursday afternoon, we had a conversation with County Executive Pacenti and the United County Health Director, Phyllis Ellis. They went through a listing of ways that a graduation could be held. And then at the very end of it, they said that you can have no more than 10 people. So it's kind of like, well, that's, to me, sounds kind of like a moot point. You know, again, one of the options that makes a lot of sense is social distancing, putting the students 6 feet apart on the football field, soccer field, limiting, the parents, there are 2 to 4 people, social distance them at the stadium. But it at this point violates the 10-person rule. So therefore, as good as it sounds, it's not something we could do. And to be honest with you, at that point, I was ready to tell to Nick that, we're going to have to go virtual. That really is the only option. One of the superintendents then asked the question, so is there any truth to the fact that drive-in movie theaters have now been granted the permission to open? And the answer was yes. And the follow-up question was then, if we were to do a drive-up movie theater type format, would that not be allowed? And they said, yes, it would, with some of the following conditions. You still cannot have 10 people up in the stage area to, again, as far as taking pictures, delivering their diplomas, giving speeches, whatever. There can be no more than 10 people in that area. They must have a face mask. Anybody outside their vehicles must have a face mask. Obviously, if the graduate came up and had their picture taken, they could remove the face mask for the purpose of the picture. The face mask would have to go back on, and as they would go back to their vehicles. So at this point, Mr. Rauch is moving forward with that scenario. I will tell you that, it is less than perfect. We still have some naysayers out there that are, again, coming up with all the reasons not to have it in that format. But if we don't strictly follow those rules, and yes, I mean, we want to keep it less than an hour. I know that, again, depending on the weather, it may be muggy in the car. And you may have to run your air conditioning. It's not ideal, but the overwhelming feeling of the senior class is they want to have some type of ceremony that they can end their school careers with. So we will have our school resource officer and law enforcement on the premises. And we will make it very clear early on that if we have to speak to a vehicle or a number of vehicles because they're not following protocol, they will be asked to leave. And if it gets to the point where we cannot conduct a ceremony befitting our graduates, the ceremony will stop at whatever letter of the alphabet we're at, and we will mail the diplomas home from there. So that's pretty much, again, graduation at this point. Any questions, concerns, thoughts?
Chuck, I had 2 questions communicated to me since we started the budget meeting, so I'll just bring them up now. If you don't have an answer, that's fine. One family wanted to know if it would be possible for just parents to walk up with the graduate. That's one question.
I did, and I think I did respond to them, and I said I would have to ask. Again, I think the thing we have to be very careful of is we have I know that we've already got, split families. So does that mean 4 people, 2 people? I mean, again, we have to be very cognizant of that 10-person rule. But I think it's doable if we can, maintain that process. But yeah, I think it's something that I will run it by Nick, and they can kind of look at it and see if it makes sense, if it's something that can be done.
Yep, appreciate that. And the other question, which is not really tied in with the ceremony itself, but seemed like a good suggestion or question, is would there be a way to organize a sort of drive-by graduation where the wonderful senior photos we have posted in town could have the actual students standing by it, and people could drive by and see those students? Just an interesting suggestion from somebody to take back and maybe discuss.
Yep, hopefully maybe Michelle Prout's listening. So, that the senior class advisors have been working diligently, with their seniors. And again, and Steve alluded to it, if you haven't been into the village since yesterday, I believe they started putting them up. You've got to kind of do a drive around and check out the banners that the school faculty and staff fundraised for and purchased. And then I believe afterwards, they can be separated and given to the students. And then there was $500 left over from the donations that was donated to the Waterville Food Bank. So if you haven't driven around Waterville in the last couple of days, can make a special trip, come down. It really is a pretty neat tradition. And it's one of those that, as I've talked to a few people, I think you're going to see some things that have come out of this pandemic and what we've had to do the last months that will be some keeper type thoughts. So I think it's definitely something. Again, if Michelle doesn't hear this, I'll make sure she does get that passed along.
Thank you.
Is it still at KJ Farms?
That is the plan as of right now, yes.
Okay. When you got talking about drive-in movies, I didn't know if you'd moved back to that thought.
Well, it's that scenario, and if you're familiar with MKJ Farms at all, between the house and then the lower barn, there's a kind of an inclined field, and I believe that is where the vehicles will park. And again, right now they're kind of working out the arrangements. There's some conversation. They believe, again, and I'm not the technological one, but they think they can do something either with speakers or possibly via your FM radio that they could broadcast over that, like they do in the new ones. You don't have to put the speaker in your car window anymore like they did back in the 1960s. Anything else on that? And one other thing I have here, and I did send it out to, I believe, the folks that are on the Construction Capital Project Committee. But again, if we may want to have a meeting or some conversation right now. I talked to Chris Crolius from March Associates on Friday, and they are still at this point on target for a beginning of August submission to the State Education Department. He did say that with a caveat and wanted to know what the construction committee thought about something called a chilled beam. And it's it would replace the heat pumps and the unit ventilators. It's a different system that NYSERDA is pushing, and they are, again, obviously want to take a look at that. They do have I think Salmon River up north is looking to move forward with that. The caveat or the drawback to that would be is they believe they're the company that SAC Associates that would be looking at it. It probably would delay submission somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks. So instead of an early August submission, you'd be looking at early September. So I don't know if you want to have a conversation about it now, Russ, or if you want to have a meeting to talk about more detail. But go ahead.
Yeah, let's, I would personally rather set up a meeting, Chuck, and if you can have Paul Sachs there and let them run some numbers prior to the meeting on the difference between that system and the units. So
Well, I'll set up a meeting. I think they could probably talk about in very theoretical terms what the conversation, but that's what the couple months would be for them to actually run some specific Waterville specific numbers to make a determination if it's something that would be feasible for Waterville. But I will get with Chris and we'll shoot out some dates and we'll get the committee together.
Thank you.
And the only other thing I have bordering on, I don't want to get into executive session conversation, but same thing, we have had conversations with the WTA about some possible situations or some savings going into next year. They haven't come up with any decisions at this point. So again, there really isn't anything new to share, but we are continuing to talk, and I think that is something that they're listening to. So I think that's very positive. That's all I have.
Okay. What board questions do we have at this time?
No, I had asked, whether or not with voting for the coaches and everything, I had concern over I had asked all of you, I think, and Chuck, about voting for the athletic coaches and everything. And I know that some football at least starts during the summer practicing, and I was concerned because I don't think we really know yet what's happening in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we don't, and I think that's it. We don't know. As the district starts to pull and gets the stakeholders together to pull together what the fall will look like and the return to school and how that will look. I mean, fall sports will be one of those conversations. I believe that football, a year or two ago, they lined up the start time to more closely relate and line up with soccer. So it's usually a week earlier. I believe they're pretty much the same time, which is, I believe, around the August 24th timeline. So we're still talking about 3 months from there. And,
Okay.
So yeah, it's definitely got to be, they'll be looking at it and the best laid plans may end up being switched even as late as probably September 1st. So I think, again, we actually have a meeting with our superintendent cabinet on Thursday to start to look at the guidelines that the governor is putting out, and to some extent that some of the local companies are starting to use for their reentries. And we're going to start to put together the plan. And I know the BOCES safety office will be taking the lead, and they've been talking with the safety offices from around New York State. So we'll start to put together a best laid plan really starting Thursday. And again, I'm expecting that to be constantly evolving through the course of really the school year. And I'm not a prognosticator, but I would be very surprised even if we get back to school as normal as it was in past years, that you're going to see some starts and stops. And as soon as somebody in the school community would test positive, you're going to do a stop. You'll do some disinfecting. You'll do some education. You do some other things. You may have to go remote for a week or two before you start back up. So, I mean, those are all things that, we don't know yet. I mean, I think they're all good questions. And I think, like I said, the answer will be determined as we move forward.
So on that question, Kim, can we make a note that the next board meeting, we need to probably set aside more dates than usual for potential board meetings in the summer? We need to be available in case things develop and we need to come together. Does everyone agree with me on that?
I do.
I see the need, quite likely it's gonna be possible, yes.
Right.
We can
So-
do that.
Yeah, we'll make sure we plan between now and 2 weeks from now that, we're preparing to be available more.
Okay.
Thank you.
What other board questions do we have before we go to public comment? Chuck, did you receive any emails or any questions that would require public comment at this point?
I have a number of, I guess, affidavits and public shows of support, probably 6 or 7 emails from various staff members and community members in support of Kim Mersch and asking the board to, I guess, reconsider a resignation in that respect. And I did forward them to each of you as I received them this afternoon during the course of the day.
I did see those. I read them.
As did I.
I did not get time to read them all. Since they came in today, I haven't had a chance to read them all.
Other than that, again, I had 2 things specifically related to the budget that other people may have. There was a question again, as did we cut academics or programs? And as we shared at the during the budget presentation itself, and at the risk of being somewhat redundant, I'll just quickly go through what were the items that were reduced. We will not do any equipment purchases this year for building and grounds, athletics, or instruction. There is no summer school scheduled. We are reducing maintenance and supply lines. There will be no late bus or extra day trips during the course of the school day. The athletic uniform schedule was placed on hold for a year. We did reduce the number of athletic tournaments that we were participating in, and we reduced game schedules for the following sports: boys and girls varsity soccer, boys and girls varsity and JV basketball, boys or varsity girls and JV volleyball, and varsity baseball and softball will all have reductions to their game schedules. And there are 2 positions that are not being filled due to attrition. And we're reducing our slot at the Middle Settlement Academy by 1. That is the only adjustments or modifications to program in this budget.
Are we? Has it been determined what extracurricular will be in the budget?
Yeah, the extracurriculars were not, there was no extracurricular clubs that were eliminated or moved at this point. It was only with the sports, we reduced games from those sports that I just mentioned. There were no clubs in the cuts that the board looked at.
Oh, that's not what I thought. Okay.
We talked a number of different, but there were actually no clubs added and no clubs cut.
Is that it for public comment, Chuck?
That's all I had. Actually, Patty, I should say that back. Patty, I don't know, Patty, if you want to unmute. She had asked about, I guess, the process regarding the vote. And again, I did invite her as a member of the media and the public if she wants to come in. Again, we do have to be very careful on that 10-person rule. But she is more than welcome if she wants to be here to oversee that. We do plan, I don't know if, and Tracy, I apologize if you did talk about this. We do plan to live stream the budget, or excuse me, the budget vote and ballot counting. So that we're not required to do that, but again, in the theme of Waterville's transparency, we do want to make sure that people, are seeing what's going on and are able to kind of view that as best as they can. And I won't be, it won't be very exciting. I think watching people count probably the 800 ballots, but again, they're more than welcome to chime in and view it if they'd like.
Thank you, Chuck. Patty, did you have any comments since you're on here? Okay, we'll move into new business then. We could move to 9-1, approval of the pilot agreement on the solar energy project.
So move. Second.
Okay. Take Russ's.
Okay. Russ and Mark, I heard you. Any discussion?
Yeah, just want to bring up again, if you kind of move back to, I think, early summer, we had gotten, actually in May, as it turns out, we got notification from NextEra, and it looked very much no different than the solicitations that you might get at home and that you kind of just toss in the garbage. It did not come certified mail. So not only did Waterville, the town of Sangerfield, or the county of Oneida not partake of the pilot, we were on the outside looking in. I think with some conversation, and at least again to tip my hat to the folks from NextEra, they did open that pilot up. We were in somewhat of a lesser bargaining position, but we did get $7,500 for both us and the town of Sangerfield for the next 15 years. And in addition to that, we also, the land that the field is on will lose its agricultural exemption and will come back on the tax rolls. It's not a large amount of money, but it does help. And then after 15 years, the property in its total value will be taxable. So again, I think we did very well to get to this point. And again, I thank the folks from the town of Sangerfield and our labor relations folks, as well as NextEra, for participating in that conversation.
Nice job. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. 9-2, approval of the policy leave of absence.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Mark and Susie. Discussion? Any questions on this one, Chuck? No?
No.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. 9-3, approval of the private transportation request for 2020 through 2021.
So move.
Thank you, Russ.
I'll second.
Thank you, Linda. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. 9-4, approval of the fall coaching applications.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Russ and Mark. Discussion?
I should have asked this before. I thought that we weren't having some of the modified sports. Did that change and I missed it?
There was conversation at one point that that could be cut, but modified sports was left in the budget intact. So yes, they're.
I should have asked you.
No, that's fine. That's a good question, because honestly, Susie, I think there's that question that is out in the public, and as people look at the meeting, they don't see a lot of times what actually, if you missed a portion of it. But again, the modified sports is in the budget as in its entirety at this point. The only changes, as I mentioned before, are the reduction of some games at the varsity level. And then again, for basketball and volleyball that has a JV team that goes along with that varsity team, those games would be trimmed as well. So that's the only, at this point, changes to the sports in Waterville.
Just for conversation's sake, I believe the governor has 2 or 3 more options to cut funding to the district. So as we approve some of these, we may have to come back and take a look at the budget. And modified may not make it in the second round or the third round if the governor continues to cut. So not that that's our priority. It's all about the money. I mean, if we don't have it, it's hard to spend it. But we reserve the right to go back and take a look at these.
Yes, thank you for the question, Susie, and the answer, Chuck, and for raising that point, Russ. We need to be clear that next year we could be revisiting anything.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the coaching applications? 9-4. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion is carried. 9-5, approval of the volunteer application.
So move.
Thank you, Susie.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, 9-6, approval of the tenure appointment.
Can you read that to me? I don't have my minutes ready, my agenda ready in front of me.
Yep, resolution for consideration, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools. The Board of Education approved the tenure appointment of Kimberly Mersch in the area of school administration effective June 23rd, 2020.
I need to go into executive session on that.
Okay, Russ made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Tracy, can you move us into an executive session, please?
Yes, I will.
Can I have a vote on that before you go, please?
Yeah,
Aye.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay. Steve, who do you want to go with you?
The board and Chuck.
Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yep.
Okay, no, I left the break room. What the heck? Oh, my word. Okay. They
Tim.
did- Let me close the rooms. All participants have been given 0 seconds. Okay, so here they come.
Russ,
Okay, all right. So
We're
now let me
here.
reopen the room. Okay. So now. All right, they're back in executive session. Russ got kicked out. So now they're back. All right. Okay. These phones going on. Oh.
You're sideways.
Oh, sorry. Come on. Catch up.
There you go.
It's a stupid phone. Oh, it's gonna fall over. Okay.
Do we have everybody back?
Shows 11.
All right.
Yes.
The challenges of doing this at home are battling me right now.
Yep, you're all here.
All right, so we'll go back to 9.6, approval of the tenure appointment. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mark,
Second.
Roberta with the second. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I'm an aye.
Kim, do you need a roll call because of technology?
I believe I have 5-2.
That's
Aye.
correct.
Okay,
Okay, motion is carried. 9-7, the approval of the resignation.
So move.
Thank you,
Second.
Russ. Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. 9-8, approval of the Madison Oneida Cooperative Bid Contract.
So move.
Thank you, Russ.
Second.
Thank you, Steve, I think.
Yep.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. 9-9, acceptance of the superintendent resignation for the purpose of retirement.
So move. Second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With
Opposed? Yeah, what was your comment there, Mark?
With best wishes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Motion is carried. Moving on to second public comment. Any questions, Chuck, that have come in or comments?
I do not have any other ones. Actually, Patty had asked what the last day of school was. That is June 16th. Obviously, the last day of instruction will vary by teacher. Some of them will shut it down in the middle part of next week and allow a week or so of makeups. But the last day of classes per se is June 16th. And just to clarify, that was because they did not have a spring break. The governor requested that they continue to work over spring break. And we have a spreadsheet that we put in. I log I wouldn't say it every day, but I log it, periodically. And by adding those days in, it automatically calculates hours and days in session. And at 180 days is June 16th.
Thank you, Chuck. Any other public comment or questions that we know of? Patty, anything?
She's on mute.
She's muted. Yeah, I see that. All right, oh, there she is.
Just, what were the no votes for 9-6, please?
if I heard it correctly, I have Mr. Stewart and Mrs. Quayle.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
Anything else, Patty?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Do we have a need for executive session?
I just have two quick questions for executive session. They have to do with negotiations and
Okay,
a
let's,
certain person.
let's get a motion.
Motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Mark, Russ, second. Okay, to discuss contract.
Can I have a vote?
We're back into session again.
Yeah, I wanted to be muted, Mark. I was talking to one of my kids.
All right.
It became chaos here.
All right.
Here's Kim.
Are you setting parameters there?
Kim, I saw your text. You can get your info now, right?
I needed a vote for you going into executive session. I had your first and second motion.
Oh, yes.
Were we unanimous? All those in favor? 7-0?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
And out at 7:45.
What are you doing?
I'm gonna do some laundry mode.
Can I get a motion to adjourn then?
So move.
Thank you, Russ.
Second.
Who was the second? Steve?
Yeah.
Steve,
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Have a great night.
You too.
thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Right.
Good night, Kim.
Good night.
Got buddy.